pleasure to have you here. Thank you for coming.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you. Thank you, Patrick. You know, you were so persistent. 12 months persuading me to do this. And
yeah, that's usually the same scenario with anyone else.
Okay. Good to be here.
Yeah. So maybe right now, just let's go back to the beginnings. If you could tell us just a little bit more about yourself. Where are you from? How did you grow up? What changes you?
You know, my background, I'm a serial entrepreneur. So since I was 18, I basically founded my first software company. It wasn't successful at all. It was a big failure. But I learned so much, and then on that grade we were able to build our following companies and be successful. So I'm from Prague. I lived in United States for some time, but most of the time I spent here, and so.
So, and why did you decide, to go into IT world, to hardware, software? Why did you decide to go to this?
I don't know. I liked technology since I was 12 or 13. I played with computers, did a little of hacking and everything. I did really like games, so I played a lot. And then, I'm a little older, so I still remember, internet being sold on CDs. But that's fine, and I decided to just stick to that and do what I like the most.
Okay, and actually what I learned that you started with some hardware company. Did you build the computers? After that you switched for software, is it right?
So when I was 16, I basically built computers for my friends, and it kind of spread. So back then I was making like almost 100 computers a month for all the network that I had back then. It was kind of fun, but it was just hard work, and I was doing that on the side while studying just to make some pocket money.
For every of your first ventures, did you have the funding from your own resources, or did you have some investors, from the very beginning when you start something, or how did you get funding?
So I was trying to avoid investors in most of my startups, and that just later on, as the year came, we realized that if we want to scale things, that we really need investors, external money. So it took a really long time for my for example, EM client project to take off. So we have built that for 6 years, and only after 6 years it was really highly profitable, and we made it up to a couple of million users that we have now. So lesson learned, we knew back then, or if we knew back then what it takes, I would certainly do more to get the investment done. So But for example, with SpaceKnow, we realized right away that it's a super expensive venture. We need investors. We need smart money. We need a lot of money, and we just went for the investment. So.
And how did you came up with the idea about SpaceKnow?
Oh, so me and my partner Pavel Machalek, he was just leaving a company that got sold to Monsanto, for $1.2 billion. And I was in San Francisco, he was in San Francisco, and he was super frustrated by the fact that the company got sold for $1.2 billion. The company was called Climate Corporation. And he worked there for 3 or 4 years as a head of remote sensing. And all he got was some lousy paycheck. I don't know what, I know how much, but I'm not going to tell you. But so he said, look, the next billion-dollar venture that I'm going to be part of is going to be my own venture. And, I got this idea. I just need, some entrepreneur to stick with me because I'm a scientist. And I said, yeah, Pavel, that's great. Let's do it. And he was my high school buddy. We know each other for 20 years. We just did it.
And you already at the time have some experience with doing business globally, because
Yeah. So at that time I was there with EM client, I think, and just closing some deals, working on, so because the company is incorporated in San Francisco, still it's incorporated in San Francisco, so we basically worked on that.
And are you still with the EM client in some role,
So-
some connection, or?
Not really. So I'm just the board of directors, and obviously I'm a co-founder, and then I own a portion of the company, but I just don't work there on a daily basis.
Okay.
But we were able to build an ecosystem of our companies in one building in Karlín, so that's fine that we have it all in one office space.
And about SpaceKnow. So actually, what I just read that you have access all around 200 satellites, private or public, around the globe. So how did you get this access?
So it was really hard at the beginning. Pavel had some really good contacts that helped us initially, and then through demos and a lot of persuading, we were able to show the companies that usually sold these pixels for millions of dollars to give it us, to provide us with the imagery for significantly less amount of, so that was good.
Maybe could you just, for the beginning, explain just by your words, so what is your product, because I don't know if anyone else knows.
So in SpaceKnow, we basically focus on satellite imagery analytics, meaning that we're trying to derive data from satellite image, that anything that is kind of hidden there. So we're trying to do a feature extraction, change detection over a period of time, or just find some ideas or some things that are hidden to a plain eye. We have built an AI system that is able to recognize, classify, and basically measure what is happening in the image over a vast area of space. So meaning that we're able to, for example, calculate all the cars that are present in one country, or identify new construction anywhere in the world, or just measure change, seasonal or non-seasonal, anywhere in the world. So it varies from obviously products that are derived data for financial institutions. And then the other vertical we focus on is defense and intelligence.
Could you tell us maybe some practical case about these financial institutions? What was some maybe most impactful case?
So one of the most impactful cases was the Chinese manufacturing index, where we looked at 6,000 locations, manufacturing locations in China. And we were trying to determine whether the manufacturing is actually growing or shrinking in China, on bi-weekly basis. And that's very impactful since China is not very good in reporting. And it's not about forecasting, it's just about nowcasting the information, and that information is very valuable.
Okay, and so what other, for example, indicators was there, for this growth about manufacturing in China? Because I believe that there may be more factors which you were monitoring.
So we are basically monitoring material properties. So it's a monitoring of inventory of those locations, and through a very complex calculations, we derive to one number, which is put in a curve, and it's either growing or shrinking.
So are you as well, can you just track, for example, all cars who are, coming into the stock, in this production farm? So this is something what you can track as well?
So we might be able to do that, but we're not doing it in this case. It's done with a little different method. But again, monitoring, for example, parking lots in front of US malls provides a very good correlation between the or you can predict whether the season for all those Best Buys and Costco is going to be good or not.
And I understand that you are doing, and you can sell it for some business analysis as well.
Mm-hmm.
So what is actually the business model behind it? How you are selling this product?
So we're selling it as a subscription. So you subscribe to a data feed, and we just provide it to you.
Is it like a subscription, or because somewhere I read about some $10 per kilometer square?
So if you want to do the analysis yourself, you can.
Mm-hmm.
We have a tool, online tool, where a GIS analyst can come and just do their own analysis. But for most of the financial institutions, they just want to derive data. They want us to provide them with a number. They don't want to play with the imagery. They just want us to give them, the rough numbers. Is it going down? Is it going up? What is happening?
Do you have some large customers here in the Czech Republic? In some particular sector, in some financial institutions?
Not really, no. So we only focus on United States, some parts of the Western Europe and Asia. So the customers I can talk about is obviously one of the biggest is Bloomberg. So our products are featured on the Bloomberg terminal. So if anyone has a Bloomberg terminal, you just put in a ticker, and you will have access to some of our products.
And what about army and government? Because I believe that these kind of services were in the early maybe 20 or 30 years ago, it wouldn't be possible to use it like this way publicly. So are you somehow cooperate with them and maybe in some kind of partnership or?
So it's not a good idea to be a partner with the government, but we're also always trying to sell them our technology. And the idea is that the public imagery that is available now, there's simply not enough physical analysts to have a look at it. So what we're trying to provide is a system that can analyze that imagery and give them insights into what is happening in some critical parts of the world. So let's say that we're able to track ships, track planes, cars, vegetation, construction, all these kind of things automatically on a super large scale. So we're not talking about cities, we're talking about the whole country. So obviously the government, they have their own satellites, their own access, and from drones and whatever, but what they're interested is in some kind of high-level AI, overview. And surprisingly, not even U.S. government has such advanced systems. They're still doing it the old way, which is a person, sitting in front of a computer, looking at the imagery, writing some kind of report.
There's no some system who's looking for the synergies and relations.
They have some very simplified systems in local cloud, but our biggest advantage that we can scale this over, super large, millions and millions of square kilometers in near real time. So what we do, we open in hundreds and hundreds of instances in Google Cloud and provide the customer with insights within minutes or hours.
Would you tell us a little bit more about the technology, machine learning, and what is behind it?
Also, we use our proprietary technology for neural networks, machine learning, and all these kind of things. We have built the pipelines for the analysis ourselves, but out of the public technology that we're using TensorFlow from Google Cloud. So Google has been our partner since the beginning, and but the rest of the stuff is just our proprietary, and we have our own GPU cloud, available in our office that just gives our scientists a way to work, easily.
Do you think it's possible to use CO2 as well for maybe some predictions for natural disasters, you know, and this kind of thing? Is it possible?
So I'm not sure if you're able actually to predict
Some tsunami or
natural disaster. I think you're able to say, if I look at the imagery 20 years ago, and you know the river is going up and down, or you know going down, that you can estimate that for example there's going to be drought in less than 2 years, or you're able to say that based on the development of a city, the city is going to grow towards a certain area, and there's going to be, you know, problems, or you know that something bad might happen. But I don't think we can predict, or the AI can predict, you know, natural disasters, you know, such.
What will happen? You can say something.
Well, no, certainly not earthquakes, you know, and not weather. So that leaves you with, you know, floods, fires. We've been working more on you know, disaster recovery help. So being able to show how the area looked before, you know, what happened to the area, how does it change, how many houses were destroyed, and things like that. So deforestation, a lot of it is deforestation. So
are there some areas, you know, around the world who are restricted? Because you know, as you can see in Google Maps or Apple Maps, someday you can see some you know, some news about, okay, these are the areas which were you know, under some restriction. Right now they are public. So how is this working? Is it really like that you have access every places on Earth, and you can, you know, publicly to give, you know, customers to insight into every inch, you know, of the planet, or are there some restrictions?
So there are certainly some restrictions in, you know, over some military bases and things like that. Obviously, every satellite provider, you know, if they come from United States, they're going to restrict you with access to satellite images over, you know, things like, you know, Area 51. Like everybody knows that.
I was curious.
I can assure you nothing is there, you know, at least from the space. The thing is, for example, Airbus or the others, being a French company, they don't care. So, you know, our job is basically to combine the imagery and just show everything. You know, we don't limit our customers in accessing the imagery. We only, because we are a US company, we work under ITAR. So we don't provide these services to any country that is under sanction of the United States or NATO. Meaning the obvious ones, you know, we don't sell this to North Korea or
okay,
Europe.
so you have some discount on it.
Yeah. But like, as I said, you know, if you want to look at Area 51, if there's a UFO, well, you may, and there isn't.
And now let's talk about business. So how is it to manage? Because you have a part of your team, I guess developers are here in Czech Republic, and some business units are around the US. So how is it to manage the teams in different kind of locations? And,
well, that's hard. That's really hard. You know, we have all our researchers, or you know, most of our researchers and developers are in Prague. All of the sales and management is in the United States. So it gets really hard to get the cultural, you know, alignment and work alignment and everything to get things done. To work in different time zones, that's kind of frustrating too, but I guess I got used to it. We did it not only to save money, but because we really think that Czech Republic has some of the best and brightest AI people in the world, and you know, developers indeed. So it's not just that we really want to save the cost. It was really you know.
it's really about technical competence.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm super happy to have the team here. We have developed our own tools, but just to be able to track time and be able to work around the clock, but I guess that's the usual. We face the usual problems every company working like that face. So.
And are you having some local guys there, in the US, or did you?
Oh yeah, so the team in
anyone from Czech Republic?
the team is in New York. We have people in DC. We have people in San Francisco. So I think out of those 55 people, 10 are in the United States.
What is your best advice to actually manage, and set the good culture, in the different kind of cultures and environment? What is your approach?
Oh, so, the worst thing that you can do is write an email or communicate on Slack, right? So many things got lost in a translation. So many things that you write contain different emotions. So, if I write you an email, there's a high chance that you're gonna understand it in a different way. You're gonna go pissed because you misunderstand what I meant. So my best advice is to talk over Hangouts or whatever, as much as possible every day. Have a 5-minute syncs, and just simulate the face-to-face that you're missing with at least this video conferencing tools that are available for free. So.
What do you think your colleagues likes about you?
That's hard. Well, I don't even know if they like me, so.
Yeah, that was a good question.
So, I guess I don't scream that much lately.
Lately.
Yeah. So I don't get that angry anymore, and which is good.
Yeah, absolutely. I believe that this is something important.
Yeah.
To build something.
Yeah.
And you mentioned investors. So regarding to SpaceKnow, you have how many investors do you have so far?
Well, I got so many I can't even remember. I mean, like we were
How many rounds?
boarding. I guess like 3 rounds,
Okay.
like 2 seed rounds, then an A round, and we're preparing a B round. So, our cap table looks like, it's really long. Yeah.
And who's the first investor?
So obviously the first one, the one we really do like, we do like all our investors, but the first guy that helped us to pull this off is Ondra Fritz, who I believe you met, who was sitting here. And Ondřej believed this from the very beginning. He is a super nice guy. He supported the SpaceKnow when it was just me, Pavel, and a PDF, and he has been supporting the company ever since.
What do you think is the best added value would he bring to the table from the very beginning? Is there something to really push you to another level?
Oh, so he tried to push us many times, but the most valuable push is when a crisis came. Ondřej is very calm, wise. He's seen a lot of shitstorms in his previous ventures. So whenever we did something wrong or something was going sideways, he was always there to help. So I guess it was mainly his a lot of mentoring, both on a company level and a personal level, which is really important for an entrepreneur. So he helped me many times, when I was either feeling down or feeling that we're not on the right track, and so Ondřej was always there.
Is it the only Czech investor and others are from the US?
I guess we have others. No, we have other Czech investors that are, I believe some of them are even here.
And regarding to your, what is your strategy to attract the investor? What is your approach?
Nothing specific, really. So you need to have a good product. you need to have a consistent story, and then you need to be at the right time, at the right place, being able to coherently explain what you're trying to do, where you're trying to be in 2 or 5 years, and that's it.
Is there something would you say that this is definitely something what we shouldn't do, like something what would you like to avoid? Maybe some of your experience, if you have some failure, during your meetings with investors.
So I have some good story. Me and my partner, we went to a top tier investor in Silicon Valley, at Sand Hill Road. It was looking really good. The investor liked us, but back then our traction was quite small. And but me and my partner, we kind of insisted that the valuation of the company is gonna be X, whereas this top tier investor, which is like, one of the best investors in the world, insisted that it's much lower. We don't have enough revenue and so on and so on. So back then we weren't humble enough to accept his offer and say, yeah, you're right. You've seen this 100 times before. Let's do this with a lower valuation. So that is a very good example of a failure. When you don't stay humble, when you have much higher expectations, and then you end up with less convenient investors, or with those that you didn't really want to take on the board. So.
Do you think that it makes sense to prepare maybe for this negotiation with investors for some maybe more realistic, expectations and business plan than only the most optimistic ones?
So, I see young people. So when I was like 25 and it was my first time in Silicon Valley, I read TechCrunch back then, or everybody reads TechCrunch or CheckCrunch. And you just read about the successful stories, right? This person made, $100 million round. That company got sold for $500 million. But I kind of miss, the stories of those hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of companies that just fail and go under every month, or every quarter, because they run out of money. The product is shit. They don't find enough customer traction and so on. So I think it just gives people this naive idea that everybody can be or want to be like Musk or Jobs or whatever, and the companies or the products, most of the time they're not that good, or the person is not that good.
So you think that they are really overestimate, these their expectations and
So the
added value of their business, to
It's easy to look somewhere else and say, oh, they raised $10 million. I want to raise $10 million as well, And if I'm raising less, then my company is going to go under, or I'm not good enough, or the investors doesn't understand me, or something really stupid. So. The raising money is not a success. It's definitely not a measurement of success, and it shouldn't be. So the only measurement of success is the customer traction, obviously, or the technology that you provide. So I guess being an angel myself, I meet people like that quite often.
What is your traction right now? What is your traction right now? How many customers?
SpaceKnow?
Yeah.
Also, we grew some 300%, year to year. We hope to grow even more, towards the end of this year. So we're finally at a point where, the customer base is growing, the revenue is growing, and so on. So. It certainly wasn't easy in the beginning. So.
And your current valuation?
36.
What is your final number? Do you have some final number, like in terms of valuation of the company, or what is your strategy and vision, to future with SpaceKnow? What would you like to achieve with SpaceKnow?
So I don't have any vision about valuation. Obviously, it's such an artificial number set by someone else. I'm super happy when we have more customers, when our technology is being used in different parts of the world, different parts of, different verticals. And I guess the valuation is going to grow with our next financing round. We have entered the VC game, so we have to play it now, from now onwards. So every time there's a major success in a company, our existing investors expect that we're going to onboard new investors and just exponentially scale the company to a different level. So that's how it is. But my own joy or happiness is solely from the customers. It's definitely not from the investors.
What is your really biggest challenge right now?
So our technology is very complex and complicated, and even for the existing customers, some of the existing customers have some hard time to comprehend what are the possibilities, how can they leverage what we have right now in their business and so on. So there's a lot of explanation, and a lot of education, and obviously the biggest problem is scaling the delivery. So the bigger the customer is, the more demanding, meaning it takes more time for our backend and research, and for the whole company, which is basically still a lot of development and research, not too much overhead. So.
And what about, as you mentioned, that your product is so complex, it's really about some education. So what about some customer support? Do you have some of these, or?
Oh yeah, but all that support is basically engineering in trying to help them understand, how did we derive the data, what data they are looking on, how can they integrate our data feed into their own complex systems and things like that.
Are you having customer support like here in the Czech Republic, or in the US, or in different?
So we have both, but I don't think customer support is our biggest challenge.
And what is your biggest success so far?
So the biggest success are those that we cannot talk about, but those that are public is basically working for Bloomberg, JP Morgan's, some of the biggest hedge funds, sovereign wealth funds, banks, and companies like that. Again, I told you we are working for governments or contractors that are working for the government. So some of our biggest successes comes from that sector.
And the biggest success for you as entrepreneur, for you as entrepreneur, serial entrepreneur, what is your biggest success?
I don't know. Like every company I still own makes me happy. So EM Client, that's end user software, kind of like legacy, but I still love it. It's being used by millions of people worldwide. The company grows a lot. It grew over 200% last year. There are more and more companies that are, using EM Client with Google. So I'm super happy about that. My latest venture is at DIVR Labs, a virtual reality. So I have a personal investment, and I help that company a lot. So we have opened a virtual reality attraction in local hamlets. So we opened in May, and so far 10,000 people came, you know, and visited, and I really like gaming, so this is my like guilty pleasure, and we're trying to scale that and open 10 different attractions around the world. And obviously SpaceKnow, which I've been working now for over 4 years. It's my day job, you know, I love it. It's, you know, I really feel that we are changing the world in a way because we're providing the information that weren't available. And I just love the fact that, you know, within a couple of years, this might be the, you know, the new Google for physical things. So an AI system that analyzes everything and anything that is happening on Earth from multiple sensors, multiple satellites, is a super meaningful thing. So, you know, I'm super thrilled to be part of that, and there are endless possibilities. So.
Are you thinking about to put maybe your satellites in the future, or this is really not a way for you, you know, into the universe? It's really around analytics.
I think we don't want to, you know, our core business is the software, is the artificial intelligence. We don't own, you know, we don't want to own the satellites. We just leverage those hundreds and hundreds of satellites that are going up. There are 10 or 15 constellations that are prepared to be deployed, and we just have an access, so in real time we can basically have that kind of, and it's not even imagery, so you know, we're accessing information from SAR, which is a aperture radar. We're able to access that. We're able to access satellites that monitor during the night. We're able to track ship beacons. We're able to track different things. So it's super exciting, but at the same time, putting our own satellites in space wouldn't help us even a bit.
And what about some growth hacking techniques? Because I read that you are really trying to be really productive in the sense of your work and the job's done. So do you have some special, you know, growth hacking technique, something which really helps you to stay focused, you know, and...
So I'm a super lazy person, and it took me a lot of persuading to do things. So and at the same time, I need to work a lot. So I use some hacks with, you know, having oxygen in my office, oxygen generating machine in my office. You know, I played around with some of the nootropics, you know, basically some vitamins for the brain. And yeah, just trying to stay alert without coffee. So I can tell you, you know, having 12 coffees a day is not a good idea if you really want to stay productive. So I use green tea instead, and I'm much happier. And so it's hacks like that, but I don't think I'm an expert on productivity. It's quite the opposite.
And what do you think about Czech startup or entrepreneurial ecosystem? What do you think about Czech entrepreneurs? What do you think is their any value, advantage, and what do you think is their weakness? Or a place what definitely should be improved?
So, you know, in some cases, like our biggest value is access to access to cheap labor, but it sounds kind of bad, but there are some super smart people here that can do good things, but we kind of miss the Western approach, like the Silicon Valley approach. We kind of stay domestic a lot. We don't travel enough. There are only few people that actually stay there for, you know, some longer time and were successful. So, for example, you know, my friend Hubert Palan, who basically moved there, and now after 2 years or 3 years of super hard work, he was able to get Kleiner Perkins to invest into his product board. that is like one of the biggest success stories in Czech startup ecosystem. You know, obviously, Kiwi with Oliver, you know, that is probably the biggest, you know, success ever. It's going to be really hard to match that. I kind of don't understand when people say that companies like Avast and the others are startups since they're like 30 years old. So in that case, Chess is a startup too. But yeah, I see really some good new companies coming up. I see interesting technology. You know, the problem is, as I said, the educational system here is built to create excellent employees. And they've been doing that for decades now. So many companies come here and just leverage that because it's super sexy to work for, I don't know, Microsoft or, you know, Google or you name it. You know, all these companies that are paying 1/10 they would spend in the United States on engineers or researchers here. So we need more people that will have the perseverance and the guts just to not only starting, you know, but also just breaking through the, you know, the entrepreneurial life or, you know, the venture things.
So you have some self-confidence to believe, you know, in your service and your product, and let's go in the market and see what happens.
Yeah, but yeah, the best thing that can happen to you is that you actually fail, learn from it, and just do it again, and then keep doing that unless keep doing that and just persevere in it. So my favorite quote comes from a person that I really don't like that much. That's Elon Musk. I know you're gonna hate me for that, but I don't get him too much. But he has this quote that describes startup life. You know, he says that being in a startup is like chewing a glass and staring into the abyss at the same time. And then after some time, you just stop staring, but you keep on chewing, which exactly describes the life of a startup. You know, you don't have there's nothing in between. You know, either you have a greatest day of your life, or, you know, you feel really, really miserable. So.
Yeah, but I believe that this is something what it's really behind, you know, to be the entrepreneur. This is the part.
Yeah. So if you can overcome that, and if you know, just don't bother about this, then you're probably gonna be successful sooner or later.
And what would you advise to Czech entrepreneurs, like top 3 things, if you could pick up top 3 points, what would be?
Like for what?
I mean, like for being successful. So top 3 things, what do you think is most important for you?
Okay, so the first one is you really need to find and talk to the customers. So whatever you do, whatever you're trying to get to the market, just do the market research, talk to your customers, and find a niche or find whatever that is what is interesting for them. The other one is what I said, perseverance, or just like stay focused. If 9 out of 10 people will tell you you're doing something that doesn't make sense, you should keep on doing that. So nobody's gonna tell you that the guys from Airbnb, they spent 4 years or 5 years being kicked out of Y Combinator every year. They had to sell some crackers to make it through, and then on the 4th year they were trying to get to Y Combinator. The guy actually, one of the founders, he actually cried in front of the commission, and Sam Altman a partner of Y Combinator who actually told me the story. He said, all right, well, this year you can come in and just be part of the Y Combinator. And to this day, you know, Airbnb is their most successful venture, or at least one of the most successful ventures. So nobody has a patent for smartness, and certainly not investors. So just believe in yourself, believe in your product, and just do what you want to do. And if you fail, you just pick up where you ended and just do something else.
Okay, thank you. So let's check the questions that we have here. So what would be your advice to an entrepreneur who is deciding whether to let investors in? How does he find out what a good deal is? Portion of equity.
Oh, so obviously my advice is do a very good due diligence on the investor. So most of the time you're being taught or explained that the investor is doing due diligence on yourself, on the company. But you know, even more important is that you do actual due diligence on your investors. So get his references, get to talk to the companies that he invested in, try to find who are his limited partners. So one of the biggest startups we mentioned earlier in Czech Republic basically did the biggest mistake. They have accepted some money that were toxic, very toxic in the beginning, and they couldn't do nothing about it, you know. So they're having hard times going through the KYC, you know, or anything, you know. So don't make such mistake. Then it's just gut feeling, you know. If you like that person, it's like marriage. So if you don't like that person in the beginning, there's a high chance that you're not going to like them in the following years. And bear in mind that you're sticking with them forever. So your A-round investor or seed level investor is going to stick with you until the sweet or bitter end. So choose wisely.
Yeah, absolutely agree. And just wondering, what was wrong with Elon, his companies, in your opinion?
So it's nothing wrong with his companies. I just don't like him personally. I had an opportunity to be at some of his presentations, and I really love SpaceX. I'm not such a big believer in Tesla, but PayPal was a great product. It's just he's not. Yeah, I don't know. It's
like you don't like him as an entrepreneur, or
no, as a person. He's just not very sympathetic to me. So
okay.
He's a great entrepreneur.
And what about the usage of your technology product in the war zones, for example?
Oh, so our
Is it working?
I don't know.
Sorry?
Our technology can be used anywhere in the world, including the war zones. We're not doing something specific for the war zones. Usually satellites and drones are being used in war zones for different use cases and different scenarios that we are working on. It's more like we work, for example, for Gates Foundation that are trying to assess how many buildings were damaged in Syria during the war. So we looked and checked the construction activity and trying to measure how many buildings and what kind of damage those buildings withstand, and try to build an index over it. So nothing specific in a war zone, since we're using only public satellites. We're not using any military grade technology that is aimed for different things. So
okay. And what is the most important aspect to focus on at the very beginning? Business planning, product development, connect potential customers. What do you think do you need if you would like to start successful business? What is the most important?
Well, certainly you need some kind of business plan, but just only the outlines. It doesn't have to be too precise, but because that's going to change every too often. And product development, you need to have at least some kind of demo that you can showcase, and that is good enough for the customer or the investor to believe in you. And obviously the most important part is just to connect to potential customers as soon as possible.
Do you think it's as well, about good business plan and numbers, that to set up the right expectations, the right scenario, for your business once you are, for example, after that looking for investor?
Well, unless you're an oracle, you're not able to do that. So I don't think that's too important.
Okay. And don't you have a fear if you will be successful, the providers of satellite images will squeeze you profit?
So that's a very good question, and we had a lot of those in the beginning. Our approach is we have ingested so many satellite providers that if one of them is trying to squeeze us, we basically just cut them off and use the other provider. So we are provider agnostic, meaning that we can use any kind of imagery, from satellites, planes, drones, whatever. So,
is it happening so often that these providers of satellite images have realized that you have so much profit? For example, if you have these 200 satellites, it's like how many providers do you right now actually are cooperating?
I think it's like, I don't know, 10 or 12, something like that. So no, it's not. We're partners with most of them. It's not that they want to cut us off or anything, but themselves, the whole market is undergoing a big transformation. That they're not able to sell pixels anymore. They need to, sell insights. They need to sell derived data information, and that's very hard because they're hardware companies. So if you're a hardware company to build a successful software, it's super complicated. It's the same thing as for us to build a satellite. So you're dealing with totally different problems.
Yeah. And do you need to be programmer and know how to code well, build a successful tech startup? How you can manage it without tech skills?
I don't think so. So I'm not a programmer. I never was a developer. I'm 100% sure that most of the super successful startups, founders are not engineers. So no.
And last two questions, what we'll pick up. What is the future of AI for the next 10 or 20 years? Yeah.
So AI will develop, and hopefully it will develop into something that will help people in many verticals. So I'm super excited in AI progress in, let's say, in medicine. So I believe artificial intelligence can change and help many people of a third world in accessing a medical care they need. And it will gradually not replace, but help or subside basically the doctors that are available only in the Western countries. So I'm super positive about AI development overall. I don't think there's going to be the Terminator case or anything.
Westworld?
Not even Westworld. We are talking about 10, 20 years. So that's still a pretty short period, and the advancements that has been made are not going towards Westworld or Terminator. So we'll see.
And what was your 3 biggest fuck-ups in your entrepreneurial life?
Only 3? Also,
the top ones.
So I talked about that one, right? We weren't modest enough. So modesty is super important as an entrepreneur and as a person. So I believe there were times in my life where I wasn't modest enough. Then I kind of, at some parts of my life, I kind of lost focus. So I did focus on multiple projects, whereas, I was supposed to focus on one only. So focus is really important. And the third one, well, I took some investors on board which I shouldn't have taken. And I trusted some people that I shouldn't have trusted. So that's just that's life.
So thank you very much, Jerry, for your dedication.
Thank you for having me here.
And if you can stay here for a while, maybe other guys would like to ask you in person. It would be great.
If I haven't bored you enough, I may bore you for another half an hour.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, Jerry. Okay. And guys, we are having some beers, I guess, and in a minute we have some beers, some refreshments. So definitely you can stay for a while, talk to Jerry, talk to each other, because that's what it's about. And I hope that you enjoy it, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.